貴重な自宅でのインタビューでリッチー・ブラックモアは新作「シャドウ・オブ・ザ・ムーン」ばかりではなく、長いキャリアを通じてのさまざまなエピソードについても語ってくれた。そのリッチーの出発点はあのディープパープル。ハードロックヘビーメタルの基礎を作り上げていった当時の活動を彼はこう振り返っている。
John Lord and myself, we had two bands that we were crazy over. One was Mountain, the other was the Vanilla Fudge, and we wanted to sound like both of those. And that's, I think, how we ended up, sounding like Vanilla Fudge, playing Mountain material. And that was our favourite two bands. And of course, Hendrix and Cream were around, so there's a lot of that type of music too. And to this day, it was great for Hendrix and maybe Eric Clapton to open up the way for hard rock, heavy, progressive bands. Because before that, like I was saying, it was like the Hollies and the Beatles, and everything was 3 chords, and if you could sing, you were in the band. If you couldn't, you were out. There was no extended solos, which there were once Eric Clapton and Jimi Hendrix started hitting the scene. So I'm very grateful for those two, for landing me in this fine mess that I'm in now. I was very into hard rock in those days, following Mountain and just like Hendrix and Cream. John was more into concertos and playing with orchestras. And I said to John, look, let's do one LP of pure rock and roll, hard rock. If it doesn't work, we'll go back to playing with orchestras, which is what we were doing. And I was getting a little bit tired of the first violinist sitting next to my Vox amplifier and holding their ears because I was so loud. And he said, okay, so we did Deep Purple and rock, and it took off. In Europe, it did very well, so that's the way we went. And that's the way I wanted to go, but luckily it took off. That's why I don't play with orchestras anymore. Which I feel that In Rock was a great LP, one of my favourites. Then we did Fireball, which is not one of my favourites. And we came out with Machine Head, which is, again, one of my favourites. And I think we played well on that. We wanted to turn into a blues band in '74. We decided that we were blues musicians. Overnight it was, I just play the blues, man. Let's get a singer that sings the blues. And Ian Gillan was having a hard time with, I think, his relationships, and we weren't talking. We hadn't spoken in about 18 months. So everything was very strained. We thought, okay, we'll get another singer, and but it'll be a blues man. And so we got in the guy, whoever he was, David Coverdale, and along with him came Glenn Hughes, we needed a bass player. That's very interesting because that I first had that idea back in '68 with a friend of mine who wrote a lot of what he writes in fourths. If you have B, 1, 2, 3, 4, then you've got your interval harmony. Now the melody of that was in fourths, which went like this. In those days, I'd never heard of that kind of that harmony, and it's interesting because about 5 years later, that's how I wrote the Smoke on the Water, which was in fourths. It's the same type of thing. And Mandrake Root was the very first song that Deep Purple put together. It was my instrumental idea along with John Lord, and that was basically our first song. That's my original Fender that I've played for the last probably 30 years.
100 years?
Yeah, 100 years.
At least.
Johann Sebastian Bach gave me this one. But if you notice, it's very old and very pitted here. That's not from overplaying. What I do is I get the wood and I shave it down. I sandpaper the wood down to make it concave, so I can get more of a feeling into the string. If I play a normal strat, my finger tends to go and fall off. Anyway, I've had it about 15 years, and I gave it to my roadie, and I said, can you have it refretted? That's these things here. And he said, of course. So now to get this concave effect, that usually takes about 3 days of sandpapering, and putting tape on the frets. I had it sent away, and the man that did the refretting job saw that the wood was shaped like this. So when he gave it back to me, he said, oh, by the way, no extra charge. As well as doing the refretting, I planed your neck flat. So I proceeded to go berserk. It would take me 3 days to get this wood perfectly how I wanted it, and he thought it was just old, so he'd taken it down flat. And then consequently, when I went to do it again, the actual bottom of the wood is showing through. So it's almost ruined the neck, because now the neck is so small and thin. I very rarely play this guitar because it is too thin to play. So thanks to the man, the overzealous fret man, he just planed the whole thing down flat. So I don't use this guitar anymore.
How old is this guitar?
It's about 25 years, 30 years.
When did you start playing it? Is this the beginning of Purple?
Yeah, beginning of Purple. And this here, I added this for no other reason and then to make people crazy. People would see this and say, what is that for? And I go, aha, you have to find out. And I remember Cozy Powell taking months and months looking at it saying, it must do something. What is it for? It does nothing. It was put there as a conversation piece to annoy people. So I've left it on there. And to this day people go, it must be for another string, it must be some sort of tension thing here. But it actually does nothing at all. That's that guitar, which is a great guitar. That's my oldest one. This one, this is the guitar I usually use on stage now. It has a Roland synthesizer pickup here. And what I do with this guitar, why it's strung like this, is because when I'm playing a steel guitar, if I have a steel, which I don't have, but if I'm playing steel, all these strings are just unwound. If I was playing with these strings, it would make too much noise. So what I do is I slacken these strings, and I lift these up, the action up, so then I can play this like a Hawaiian guitar, a steel guitar, without getting the buzz from the other strings. So I have 4 strings